The wheelchair rolled to a stop at the altar. The entire church held its breath as Eliza Blackwood, the billionaire everyone thought would never walk again, gripped the armrests of her chair. Her eyes locked with mine, filled with a secret we'd kept for months. I stood frozen, my heart hammering against my ribs, as she slowly pushed herself upward. The gasps echoed through the cathedral as she stood tall for the first time in public in 7 years. "James," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the silent room, "I wanted to look you in the eyes when I tell you the truth, asterisk. If you're wondering what happens next in this incredible journey of deception, sacrifice, and unexpected love, stay with me. This story will take you through every emotion imaginable, and trust me, the ending is something you won't see coming. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that touches the heart and challenges what you think you know about love and sacrifice." 7 months earlier, I was drowning. Not literally, though some days that might have been easier. I was drowning in medical bills, in the responsibility of raising my 10-year-old daughter Sophie alone, in the grief that still clung to me 3 years after my wife's death. The hospital where I worked as a nurse had just announced layoffs, and my name was on the list. That morning, I'd found an eviction notice taped to our apartment door. Sophie's diabetes medication costs were astronomical, even with the insurance I was about to lose. I sat at our small kitchen table after she'd gone to school, head in my hands, wondering how I'd failed so completely at the one job that mattered, keeping my little girl safe. The phone rang. Unknown number. "Is this James Carter?" a crisp, professional voice asked. Yes, I answered warily, expecting another debt collector. "My name is Marcus Winters, attorney for Ms. Eliza Blackwood. She would like to meet with you this afternoon regarding a potential employment opportunity." I almost laughed. Eliza Blackwood was practically a myth in our city, the reclusive tech billionaire who'd revolutionized medical AI before a car accident left her paralyzed from the waist down. She disappeared from public view 7 years ago, running her empire from behind closed doors. "There must be some mistake," I said. "No mistake, Mr. Carter. A car will pick you up at 2 p.m. Ms. Blackwood is particularly interested in your nursing background and experience with pediatric care." I thought of the eviction notice. Of Sophie's medication. Of the dwindling balance in my bank account. "I'll be ready at 2. The Blackwood estate sprawled across 30 acres of manicured grounds overlooking the ocean. The driver led me through a labyrinth of hallways to a sunlit conservatory where plants from around the world created a private jungle. And there she was. I'd seen photos of Eliza Blackwood from before her accident, a tall, commanding woman with piercing blue eyes and an intimidating intelligence that seemed to radiate from her. The woman before me still had those eyes, but she was thinner, paler. Her wheelchair was sleek and obviously custom-made, like everything else in her world. "James Carter," she said, not a question but an assessment. "Thank you for coming." "Ms. Blackwood," I nodded, suddenly aware of my department store clothes and the scuff marks on my shoes. "Please, sit." She gestured to a chair across from her. "I'll be direct. I need a private nurse with your qualifications. The salary is $250,000 annually, with full benefits and housing on the estate for you and your daughter." I nearly choked. That was 5 times what I'd been making. "Why me?" I managed to ask. Something flickered across her face, vulnerability, perhaps, though it disappeared so quickly I thought I'd imagined it. "Your former supervisor at Children's Hospital speaks highly of your skills. You have experience with long-term care patients. And you have a reputation for discretion." She paused. "I value my privacy, Mr. Carter." It seemed too good to be true. There had to be a catch. What exactly would my duties entail? She studied me for a long moment. That's where this conversation becomes unconventional. What I'm about to propose will sound strange, possibly offensive. I ask only that you hear me out completely before responding. I nodded, a knot forming in my stomach. In addition to standard nursing care, I need you to marry me. The silence that followed was absolute. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. Excuse me? It would be a marriage of convenience only, she continued, her voice businesslike. My grandfather's will stipulates that control of Blackwood Technologies transfers to my cousin if I don't marry before my 35th birthday, which is in 8 months. He believes my disability makes me unfit to lead. He's been waiting for years to take control, and he'll dismantle everything I've built. But surely someone in your position could find a willing husband? Her laugh was bitter. I've been approached by countless men since my accident, all interested in my fortune, none in me. I need someone who will agree to clear terms, someone who understands this is a business arrangement, not a love match. And after the marriage requirement is satisfied? We divorce amicably after 2 years. You'll receive an additional $2 million as a settlement. My head spun. This kind of money would secure Sophie's future, pay for college, ensure she always had the medical care she needed. Why me? I asked again. Her eyes softened slightly. Because you need this as much as I do, Mr. Carter. And because I believe you're a good man who keeps his promises. I thought of Sophie. Of the eviction notice. Of the future stretching before us, full of struggle and uncertainty. I need to think about this. She nodded. Of course. You have until tomorrow. Sophie was doing homework when I got home, her dark curls falling over her face just like her mother's used to. My heart squeezed painfully in my chest. How was school, kiddo? She looked up with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Fine. Mrs. Abernathy says I'm the best writer in class. That's my girl. I sat beside her. Listen, Soph. I had a job interview today. A really good one. Her eyes lit up. Did you get it? I'm thinking about it. It would mean moving, though. The job comes with a house. A house? Like, not an apartment? The wonder in her voice broke my heart. At 10 years old, she'd never lived in a house. A big one, with grounds to play on. But it would mean some changes for us. She studied my face with that uncanny perception she'd had since she was tiny. What kind of changes? How could I explain this to a child? I took a deep breath. The lady who wants to hire me, she needs someone to take care of her because she's in a wheelchair. But she also needs someone to pretend to be married to her. For business reasons. Sophie's brow furrowed. Like in the movies when people get fake married? Something like that. She thought for a moment. Would you have to kiss her and stuff? Despite everything, I laughed. No, nothing like that. It would just be on paper. Would I have to call her mom? The question hit me like a physical blow. No, sweetheart. Never. No one could ever replace your mom. Sophie nodded, satisfied. Then I think you should do it, Dad. Mrs. Abernathy says sometimes we have to do hard things to take care of the people we love. Out of the mouths of babes. The next day, I accepted Eliza's offer with one condition, complete honesty with Sophie about the arrangement. Eliza agreed immediately, seeming almost relieved. We moved into the guest house on the estate the following week, a guest house that was 3 times the size of our apartment. Sophie was enrolled in the best private school in the area, with accommodations for her diabetes. I began working with Eliza daily, learning her care routine, her medications, the exercises that helped manage her pain. For someone who projected such confidence in business, Eliza was intensely private about her physical limitations. The first time I had to help her from her wheelchair to her bed, I saw tears of frustration in her eyes, though she blinked them away quickly. I hate being helpless, she said quietly. You're not helpless, I replied. You're just human. She looked at me strangely, as if no one had ever said such a thing to her before. Days turned into weeks. I learned that behind Eliza's businesslike exterior was a woman with a sharp wit and surprising kindness. She set up a state-of-the-art gaming system for Sophie and taught her to code. She never talked down to my daughter, instead treating her questions with the same seriousness she gave to her executive board. One evening, I found them laughing together in Eliza's study, Sophie perched on the edge of her desk. "Dad!" Sophie exclaimed. "Eliza's teaching me about neural networks. Did you know computers can learn like people? Is that so?" I smiled, something warm unfurling in my chest at the sight of my daughter so animated. "Your daughter is brilliant," Eliza said, her eyes soft in a way I'd never seen before. "She grasps concepts that confuse most of my engineers." Later, after Sophie had gone to bed, Eliza and I sat on the terrace overlooking the ocean. The night was cool, and I draped a blanket over her legs without thinking. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Not just for this," she gestured to the blanket, "but for Sophie. For bringing life back into this mausoleum I've been hiding in." "She's pretty special," I agreed. "Like her father." Her eyes met mine, and something electric passed between us. I cleared my throat. "We should discuss the wedding plans. Your birthday is in 5 months." The moment broke. Eliza straightened, back to business. "Yes, of course. I've arranged for a small ceremony here on the grounds. Just enough guests to make it believable, mostly business associates." "And your family?" Her face hardened. "My cousin Richard will be there, watching for any sign this isn't legitimate. He's already hired private investigators to look into your background." "Let them look," I shrugged. "I've got nothing to hide." "No," she said softly. "I don't believe you do." 3 months into our arrangement, I noticed something strange during Eliza's physical therapy session. When the therapist applied pressure to her legs, her toes flexed slightly. After the therapist left, I mentioned it to Eliza. "It's nothing," she said dismissively. "Phantom movements. It happens sometimes." But I'd worked with enough patience to know better. "Eliza, that wasn't a phantom movement. Your brain was sending signals, and your body was responding." She wheeled herself to the window, her back to me. For a long moment, she was silent. 2 years ago, she finally said, I began regaining some sensation in my legs. Minimal at first, just pressure, heat, cold. The doctors said it was unusual but not unheard of. Some spinal injuries can partially heal over time. I moved to stand beside her. "That's incredible news. Why keep it secret?" She turned to face me, her expression vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. "Because I don't know how much function I'll regain, if any. I can feel my legs now, but I still can't move them voluntarily beyond small reflexes. The doctors say I might never progress beyond this point." "But you might," I pressed. "With the right therapy." "I've had the best therapy money can buy for 7 years," she interrupted. "This is the first progress I've made. I can't." Her voice broke. "I can't let myself hope, only to be crushed again." I knelt beside her wheelchair, taking her hand. "Hope isn't something to fear, Eliza." Her fingers tightened around mine. "In my experience, it's the most dangerous thing in the world." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Eliza, about the progress she'd hidden from the world. About the fear in her eyes when she spoke of hope. I slipped out of bed and went to my laptop, researching spinal cord injuries and recovery. Hours later, as dawn broke over the ocean, I found what I was looking for, an experimental treatment program at a clinic in Switzerland. The results were promising for patients with Eliza's exact type of injury. At breakfast, I placed the printouts beside her coffee cup. "What's this?" she asked. "A possibility," I said simply. She scanned the pages, her expression unreadable. When she looked up, her eyes were guarded. The success rate is only 38%. That's 38% higher than doing nothing. It would mean months of treatment. Intensive therapy. I'm a nurse, remember? I could go with you. She studied me for a long moment. Why do you care so much, James? In 4 months, you'll have fulfilled your obligation. The money will be yours regardless of my condition. The question caught me off guard. Why did I care? When had this arrangement become something more? Because everyone deserves hope, I said finally. Even billionaires who are afraid to want things. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Is that what you think I am? Afraid? Terrified, I confirmed. But brave enough to try anyway. She took a deep breath. I'll make some calls. 2 weeks later, we were on Eliza's private jet bound for Zurich. Sophie was staying with Eliza's most trusted housekeeper, continuing her schooling remotely and video calling us daily. The clinic was discreet, tucked away in the Alps. Eliza's treatment was grueling, 8 hours a day of specialized therapy, electrical stimulation of her neural pathways, experimental medications. I stayed by her side through all of it, both as her nurse and as something else. Something neither of us had put a name to. The first breakthrough came 6 weeks in. During a therapy session, Eliza managed to voluntarily move her right foot, just a small twitch, but unmistakably intentional. She stared at her foot in shock, then at me, tears streaming down her face. James, she whispered. Did you see? I nodded, my own vision blurring. I saw. That night, we celebrated with champagne on the balcony of our suite, the Alps rising majestically around us. Eliza was more animated than I'd ever seen her, her cheeks flushed with excitement and hope. The doctor says if I continue at this rate, I might be able to stand with support in a few months, she said, her eyes bright. Maybe even take a few steps. That's incredible, I smiled, genuinely happy for her. She studied me over the rim of her glass. You know what this means, don't you? If I can stand at our wedding, even for a moment, Richard will have no grounds to challenge the will. Everyone will see I'm capable of running the company. Our wedding. The words hung between us, a reminder of the business arrangement that had brought us together. Right, I said, something deflating inside me. The wedding. Eliza set down her glass, her expression turning serious. James, there's something I need to ask you. My heart stuttered. What is it? When this is over, when I've secured the company and paid you what I promised, what will you do? I hadn't allowed myself to think that far ahead. Go back to nursing, I suppose. Find a place for Sophie and me. You wouldn't stay on as my nurse? There was something in her voice I couldn't quite identify. Vulnerability? Hope? Would you want me to? She looked away, out at the mountains. I've grown accustomed to having you around. Both of you. The house was empty before. I took a chance and reached for her hand. Eliza, are we still talking about a business arrangement? Her eyes met mine, and for once, all her carefully constructed walls were down. I don't know anymore. That's what terrifies me. I leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. When our lips met, it felt like coming home to a place I'd never been before. The next 3 months transformed everything. Eliza's progress exceeded even the doctor's expectations. By the time we returned to the estate, she could stand with braces for short periods and take a few steps with a walker. But the physical changes were nothing compared to the emotional ones. The woman who returned was not the same one who had left. She laughed more. She joined Sophie and me for dinner every night. She spoke of the future with excitement rather than calculation. The rain fell in sheets that night, the kind that seemed to wash away all hope along with the grime of the city streets. James Wilson stood at his apartment window, watching lightning crack across the sky, wondering how he'd tell his 8-year-old daughter they might not make rent again this month. Little did he know, the drenched figure huddled at the bus stop below would change their lives forever. If you've ever believed in fate or second chances, this story might just restore your faith in humanity. Stay with me until the end, I promise it'll be worth it. If this story touches your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more incredible true stories that remind us of the unexpected ways lives can intertwine. James pulled his worn flannel robe tighter around his thin frame. At 42, he looked a decade older. Life had carved deep lines around his eyes and sprinkled premature gray throughout his dark hair. 6 years as a single father had aged him, but he never complained. Not when his wife died of cancer, leaving him alone with their 2-year-old daughter, Lily. Not when he lost his accounting job during company downsizing. Not even when he had to take 2 minimum wage positions just to keep a roof over their heads. "Daddy?" Lily's small voice came from behind him. She stood in her faded unicorn pajamas, clutching the stuffed rabbit her mother had given her. "I can't sleep with the thunder." James smiled, the kind of smile that hid pain behind love. "Come here, sweetheart." He lifted her onto his hip, though she was getting almost too big for that now. Together, they watched the storm rage. "Someone's down there," Lily pointed to the bus shelter across the street. "They look cold." James squinted through the rain-streaked glass. Sure enough, a figure sat hunched on the bench, head bowed against the elements. The last bus had gone hours ago. He knew the schedule by heart from the months he'd relied on public transportation before he could afford his beat-up Honda. "They'll be okay," he said, though uncertainty tinged his voice. "The next bus comes at," he checked the clock on the wall. 11:42 p.m. "Actually, there won't be another bus until morning." Lily looked up at him with her mother's eyes, deep brown and impossibly kind. "We should help them, Daddy. Remember what you always say?" James sighed. His late wife's voice echoed in his head alongside his daughter's. "Kindness costs nothing, but its value is beyond measure." It was their family motto, one he tried to live by even when kindness seemed like a luxury they could scarcely afford. "Stay here," he told Lily, setting her down. "Lock the door behind me. I'll be right back." The rain soaked him instantly as he jogged across the street, his threadbare sneakers splashing through puddles. As he approached the shelter, he realized the figure was a young woman, perhaps in her early 20s. She wore expensive-looking clothes that were now thoroughly drenched, and she clutched a small backpack to her chest. "Excuse me," James called over the downpour. "Are you okay? The next bus isn't until 6 a.m. The woman looked up, startled. Her face was tear-streaked, though in the rain it was hard to tell. She had striking features, high cheekbones, clear blue eyes, and dark hair plastered to her head. I didn't realize," she stammered, her voice carrying a slight accent he couldn't place. "I just needed somewhere to sit and think." "In this weather?" James frowned. Something wasn't right. Her clothes, despite being soaked, were clearly high-end. A small diamond stud glinted in her ear. Yet here she was, alone at a bus stop in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods, well after midnight. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she said simply. James hesitated. Every instinct told him to be cautious. He had Lily to think about. But the young woman looked genuinely distressed, and the storm was only worsening. "Look," he said finally, "I live just across the street with my daughter. Our place isn't much, but you can dry off and stay until morning if you need to. I can sleep on the couch." The woman studied him, wariness evident in her posture. "Why would you help a stranger?" James shrugged, rain dripping from his hair. "Because someone should. I'm James, by the way." After a moment's hesitation, she stood. "Elise," she replied, though something in her tone suggested it might not be her real name. Back in the apartment, Lily was waiting anxiously by the door. Her eyes widened at the sight of their soaked visitor. "Lily, this is Elise. She's going to stay with us tonight because of the storm," James explained, grabbing their cleanest towels from the linen closet. "Hello," Lily said shyly, before adding with the directness only children possess, "Your shoes are very pretty, even though they're all wet." Elise looked down at her designer boots and smiled, the first genuine expression James had seen from her. "Thank you. I like your rabbit." James showed Elise to the bathroom, gave her some of his ex-wife's clothes that he'd never been able to part with, and prepared the couch for himself. Their apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and a living area with furniture that had seen better days. The walls needed paint, and the carpet was worn thin in places, but it was clean and warm. "I'm sorry it's not much," James said as he set a mug of hot tea on the coffee table for her. Elise emerged from the bathroom in the borrowed clothes, her wet hair combed back. "It's perfect," she said quietly, looking around with an expression James couldn't quite read. "Thank you." After Lily was tucked back into bed, James and Elise sat in the living room, the storm still raging outside. An awkward silence stretched between them until James finally spoke. "So, do you want to talk about why you were really at that bus stop?" Elise stared into her tea. "Not particularly." "Fair enough," James nodded. "We all have our stories. But if you're in some kind of trouble—" "I'm not," she said quickly. "Not the kind you're thinking, anyway." She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I just needed to disappear for a while." James didn't push. He understood the need to escape, even if just for a night. Instead, he told her about Lily, about teaching 3rd grade before budget cuts forced him into retail and night security work, about his dreams of going back to school someday. Elise listened intently, asking thoughtful questions. As the night wore on, she gradually revealed small details about herself. She loved art, spoke 3 languages, and had traveled extensively. But she carefully avoided mentioning family or why she was alone in the rain. By the time they both retired, Elise to James's room and James to the lumpy couch, something had shifted. A tentative trust had formed, born of shared humanity in the middle of a storm. Morning arrived with clear skies and sunlight streaming through the windows. James woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of laughter. Following the noise to the kitchen, he found Elise and Lily making pancakes together, flour dusting both their faces. "Daddy! Elise is teaching me how to flip them in the air," Lily exclaimed, her eyes bright with excitement. "I hope you don't mind," Elise said, suddenly uncertain. "I found ingredients and thought I'd make breakfast as a thank you." "Mind? This is the best wake-up call I've had in years," James smiled, accepting a mug of coffee that tasted far better than the instant brand he usually bought. They ate together at the small kitchen table, Lily chattering about school and her upcoming science project. For a brief moment, it felt like they were a normal family without the weight of financial stress and loneliness that had become James's constant companions. After breakfast, Elise insisted on washing the dishes. "I should get going soon," she said, though she made no move toward the door. "Where will you go?" James asked, helping dry the plates. Elisa's expression clouded. "Back to reality, I suppose." Before she could elaborate, a sharp knock came at the door. James frowned. They rarely had visitors, especially on a Saturday morning. When he opened it, he found 2 stern-looking men in dark suits standing in the hallway. "Can I help you?" James asked, immediately on guard. "We're looking for Alexandra Devereaux," one of the men said, his tone professional but urgent. "We have reason to believe she might be here." James was about to deny knowing anyone by that name when Elise appeared behind him. "It's okay, James," she said softly. "That's me. My real name is Alexandra." The men visibly relaxed. "Miss Devereaux, your father has been extremely concerned. The entire security team has been searching all night." James turned to her, confusion evident on his face. "What's going on?" Alexandra, not Elise, sighed deeply. James, I haven't been entirely honest with you. My father is Richard Devereux. The name hit James like a physical blow. Everyone knew Richard Devereux, the real estate magnate whose company owned half the city, including the building where James worked his night security job. His net worth was estimated in the billions. You're a Devereux, he managed, trying to reconcile the humble, kind woman who'd made pancakes with his daughter with the heiress to one of the country's largest fortunes. I am, she confirmed, a hint of defiance in her voice. And I ran away last night because I was tired of living in a bubble where everyone wants something from me. I just needed one night of being nobody special. The security men waited patiently by the door while Alexandra gathered her things. Lily, sensing the tension, hugged her stuffed rabbit tightly. Are you leaving, Elise? She asked in a small voice. Alexandra knelt down to Lily's level. I am, sweetheart. But thank you for sharing your home with me. It meant more than you know. As she stood to leave, she pressed something into James's hand, a business card with her personal number scrawled on the back. Thank you for your kindness, she said simply. It cost you nothing, but to me, it was everything. And then she was gone, whisked away in a black luxury car that seemed jarringly out of place in their neighborhood. James stood at the window with Lily, watching as the vehicle disappeared around the corner, taking with it the strange connection that had formed in the span of a single stormy night. Will we ever see her again, Daddy? Lily asked. James looked down at the card in his hand. I don't know, sweetheart. Life returned to its normal rhythm. James continued working his 2 jobs, Lily went to school, and the struggle to make ends meet remained constant. The night with Alexandra began to feel like a dream, something too fantastical to have actually happened. 3 weeks later, James was called into his manager's office at the department store where he worked days. His heart sank, budget cuts had been rumored, and he couldn't afford to lose this job. Wilson, his manager began, unusually solemn, I received a call from corporate today. James braced himself for the worst. They've created a new position, Head of Community Outreach and Education Programs. Full benefits, significant salary increase. And they want you for it. James stared, certain he'd misheard. Me? Why? His manager shrugged. Apparently, someone very high up recommended you personally. Said you embodied the values the company wants to promote. That evening, a letter arrived at their apartment. Inside was an acceptance letter to the local university's education program, with a note stating his tuition had been covered by a private scholarship fund. The letter was unsigned, but James knew. 2 days later, as James was helping Lily with homework, a knock came at their door. This time, it was Alexandra herself, dressed casually in jeans and a simple blouse, though the watch on her wrist probably cost more than his car. Hi, she said, suddenly shy. I hope it's okay that I came by. Lily squealed with delight, running to hug her. James stood frozen, 1,000 questions racing through his mind. Was it you? He finally asked. The job? The scholarship? Alexandra nodded. My father owns the parent company of your store. And I serve on the board of the education foundation that provided the scholarship. She hesitated. Are you angry? James considered the question seriously. I've never taken handouts, he said slowly. I've always wanted to earn everything I have. It's not a handout, Alexandra insisted. It's an investment. In someone who deserves a chance. She stepped closer. That night, you showed me kindness when you had every reason not to. You opened your home to a stranger because it was the right thing to do, even when you had so little to give. She glanced around the apartment, seeing not its shabbiness but the evidence of love that filled it, Lily's artwork on the refrigerator, the bookshelf overflowing with library books, the worn photo albums carefully arranged on a side table. My father built his empire on the belief that everyone has a price, she continued. That night showed me some things are priceless. Your kindness changed something in me, James. I've spent the last 3 weeks convincing my father to establish a foundation for single parents pursuing education, with you as our first recipient." James felt overwhelmed. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll accept," Alexandra smiled. "And maybe say you'll have dinner with me sometime?" "Just as friends," she added quickly, a blush coloring her cheeks. Lily tugged on James's hand. "Say yes, Daddy. Elise makes the best pancakes." James laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. "Well, I can't argue with that logic." Over the following months, James's life transformed. He reduced his work hours to attend classes, excelling in his education courses. The new position allowed him to create programs that helped other struggling families in the community. For the first time since losing his wife, he felt hope taking root again. Alexandra became a regular visitor, her friendship with both James and Lily deepening with each passing week. She taught Lily about art and languages, while James showed her the simple joys she'd missed growing up in privilege, flying kites in the park, making s'mores over a camping stove, watching fireflies on summer evenings. Richard Devereaux initially disapproved of his daughter's new friends, but even he was eventually won over by Lily's unfiltered charm and James's integrity. The foundation Alexandra had created flourished, helping dozens of single parents return to school. 1 year after that stormy night, James and Lily moved into a modest but comfortable house with a small backyard, purchased with his own savings from his new position. On moving day, Alexandra arrived with housewarming gifts and news of her own. "I'm starting my own art therapy center for children," she announced proudly. "No more working for my father's company. This is all mine." "That's wonderful," James said, genuinely happy for her. Their friendship had carefully avoided crossing certain lines, though the attraction between them had grown increasingly difficult to ignore. As they sat on the porch that evening, watching Lily chase fireflies in the yard, Alexandra turned to him. "Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if it hadn't rained that night?" she asked. "If you hadn't looked out your window at exactly the right moment?" James considered this. "I believe some people come into our lives for a reason. Maybe it wasn't chance at all." "My father would call that sentimental nonsense," Alexandra smiled. "And what would you call it?" She looked at him, the last light of day illuminating her face. "I'd call it the best kind of fortune. The kind money can't buy." James reached for her hand, and she intertwined her fingers with his. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Lily dance in the gathering dusk, the future stretching before them like an unwritten story, one where kindness had indeed proven to be the most valuable currency of all. 2 years later, on the anniversary of that stormy night, James proposed in the rain at the same bus stop where they'd first met. Alexandra said yes before he could even finish asking. Lily, now 11, had helped plan the whole thing, right down to the umbrella decorated with fairy lights. Their wedding was small and intimate, held in the community garden that James had helped establish through his outreach program. Richard Devereaux walked his daughter down the aisle, having finally recognized that his daughter's happiness was worth more than any business merger or social connection. In his vows, James spoke words that resonated with everyone present. "You came to my door as a stranger seeking shelter from a storm, but you became the shelter I didn't know I needed. You taught me that sometimes, the greatest gifts arrive in unexpected packages, and that opening your heart, even when you're afraid, can lead to the most extraordinary journey."